Let me tell you a hard truth no one else has the guts to say. The longer you stay silent, the more your avoidant ex obsesses over you. Yeah, read that again. Let it burn in. You think your silence means they've forgotten you. You think they're out there living it up, glowing up, moving on like your absence meant nothing. You think they've won. Wrong. Dead wrong. That's the illusion their silence wants you to believe. That's the bait they need you to fall for. Because avoidance, they don't move on, they don't heal, they hide. They're not stronger without you. They're running from the very thing they said they wanted, from closeness, from accountability, from being seen. They run from intimacy like it's fire. But guess what happens when you stop chasing? You turn up the heat. You don't vanish into thin air. You don't become irrelevant. You become haunting. You become the ghost they can't shake. Because you're the one who didn't beg. You didn't fold. You didn't break no contact to see how their weekend was. You didn't cave to the itch to send just one text. And let me make this brutally clear. If you're even thinking of reaching out, if you're staring at your phone, rereading old messages, wondering if they're thinking about you too, don't. This isn't about games. This is about power. You're not showing care. You're showing weakness. You're not being the bigger person. You're being the predictable one. And nothing scares an avoidant more than realizing this. You don't need them anymore. Because here's what happens when you stay silent. They start wondering why. They start replaying everything. They start asking themselves, why haven't they reached out? Were they really that over it? Did I even matter to them? That's the irony. Avoidants fear intimacy, but crave validation. They don't want closeness, but they can't stand being discarded. They don't want you to hold them. But the second they realize they can't pull you back with a look, a like, or a breadcrumb, they panic. Your silence isn't passive. It's powerful. It's your statement. It's your refusal to play their game. And if you can hold that silence long enough, if you can resist the itch to explain, to fix, to prove your worth, you win. Not just in the relationship, you win in yourself. You level up. Because you stop reacting and you start commanding. Stay to the end of this video and I'll show you the exact psychological reasons your silence unravels an avoidant. Why no contact is not just a boundary, it's a mirror. And how to flip the dynamic so hard it'll make them spiral through your old messages like an addict with no fix. By the time we're done, you won't just understand what makes avoidance tick. You'll dominate the game they've been trying to play you in from the start. And let me tell you something else. This video isn't for the weak-hearted. It's not for the ones looking to stay friends. It's not for the ones hoping to win their ex back with good vibes and passive Instagram stories. This is for the ones who are done being the fallback. Done being the emotional punching bag. Done being stuck in that limbo of almost love and halfway commitment. So before we go deeper, I want you to claim this moment. Comment this right now below. My silence speaks louder. Say it with your chest. Type it, not for them, for you. Because you're not chasing anymore. You're not waiting around for breadcrumbs. You're not checking your worth through someone else's fear of connection. You're not reaching back. You're rising above. This is your reset, your shift, your rise. If you're done being controlled by confusion, if you're ready to take your power back and finally understand how to break free from this avoidant cycle for good, like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the mindset that makes you unshakable. Then drop it in the comments, loud and clear. My silence speaks louder. Say it, own it. Because this time, you're not reacting, you're rewriting the rules. Let's get started. Stay focused. The first key point. Avoidants don't forget you. They delay the fallout. Let's kill the biggest myth right now. Avoidants don't move on quickly. They detach quickly. There's a difference. And that difference is what makes your silence lethal. When they ghosted you, they didn't feel peace. They felt relief. Temporary relief. Not because you were too much, but because intimacy felt too close, too real, too threatening to the fragile emotional structure they've spent years building to keep people at arm's length. But here's what they never tell you. That relief. It comes with a time bomb. And the moment you go silent, truly silent, you start the countdown. Because here's what happens with avoidance. They don't feel the loss right away. They shove it down, distract themselves, move quickly into another situation, maybe even post like they're thriving. But that's not growth. That's emotional debt, and it collects interest. They borrowed peace by cutting you off. But silence is the invoice. You see, while you're healing, they're pretending. While you're evolving, they're repressing. And the longer they avoid facing themselves, the heavier your absence becomes. Why? Because your silence doesn't tell them you're hurting. It tells them you've adapted. It whispers, I don't need closure. I don't need to chase. I'm not playing the game anymore. And that is terrifying. Because the moment they realize you're not reacting, they start wondering, did I misread this whole thing? Were they stronger than I thought? Did I just walk away from someone irreplaceable? And they won't tell you that. They'll tell themselves you never cared, that you gave up, that you must have moved on quickly, but late at night, when no one's around. That mask slips, and they feel the weight of what they ran from you. Key point 2. Your silence forces them to confront what they've spent years avoiding. Here's something you need to understand deep in your bones. Avoidants aren't afraid of you. They're afraid of what they feel when they get close to you. Closeness triggers their oldest wounds. It pokes at their unresolved childhood. It calls out every survival strategy they've relied on to stay independent and emotionally untouched. So what do? They push you away. They withdraw when things get too real. They act like nothing's wrong, even as they're building walls between you brick by brick. And when you finally go silent, you do the one thing they can't tolerate. You leave them alone with themselves. That silence you're holding? It's not no contact. It's a mirror. And avoidants hate mirrors. Because in that mirror they don't just see you, they see their patterns, their cowardice, their emotional limitations. And make no mistake, this part? This is where your power starts to compound. Because silence is neutral to the strong, but to the emotionally avoidant, it's louder than a scream. They start pacing, checking your story, overthinking the last thing you said, wondering if you're waiting, or worse, if you're done. And they won't message you. Why? Because if they admit they miss you, they lose control, and control is their drug. So they suffer quietly, while you rise quietly. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's not some Hollywood apology arc. It's psychological erosion. Little by little, your silence chips away at the story they told themselves. That you'd always be there. That you'd chase. That they could push you away without consequences. But your silence? That was the consequence. And it's the one they never saw coming. Key point 3. The illusion of moving on is just a performance. Let's talk about what really happens after they ghost you, block you, or walk away like it was nothing. They post, they party, they flirt, they live their best life. And you, if you're not grounded, you start spiraling. How can they be so okay? Did I mean anything to them? Why do they look happier without me? Let me burn that fantasy to the ground. It's not happiness, it's hiding. That new person they're flaunting. That's a distraction. That energy shift. A mask. That freedom they're celebrating. It's fear dressed up as fun. Avoidants don't heal, they replace. Not because they're over you, but because they're terrified of feeling the emptiness that comes when they don't have someone orbiting them. So they rush, they rebound, they rewrite the story in their head to make you the problem and them the survivor. But deep down, that performance, it's fragile. Because the one thing avoidance cannot fake for long is peace. And peace is exactly what your silence radiates. Every time they check your profile and see stillness instead of thirst. Every time they expect a reaction and get a blank screen. Every time their bait doesn't work. It chips away at the illusion. Because silence tells a story. A dangerous one. A story that says, I've leveled up without you. You didn't break me. You lost access, not value. And here's the plot twist. While they're performing moved on for the world, they're watching you in silence, silently comparing, silently doubting, silently aching for what they threw away but can't admit they want back. They're hoping you'll break. Because if you break no contact, if you send that message, if you show them they still have emotional pull, they win. But if you don't, you become the one they couldn't replace, the one they still think about, the one who haunts the quiet between their distractions. Key point 4. Your peace is their trigger. Let's get brutally honest. Avoidants aren't afraid of you. They're afraid of what your peace says about them. You ever notice how, when you were anxious, chasing, over-explaining, apologizing for existing, they were calm? But the moment you started pulling back, getting quiet, living your life, they got edgy, weird, distant, passive-aggressive, silent. That's not coincidence. That's threat. Because here's what no one tells you. The more regulated you become, the more dysregulated they feel. And when your silence starts radiating stability, that's when their mask starts cracking. Avoidants are addicted to being in control, the one who pulls away, the one who holds the power, the one who stays calm while you break. But your silence flips the script. You stop reacting. You stop explaining. You stop asking, what did I do wrong? And instead you embody something they never thought you'd find. Peace. And peace is the one thing an avoidant can't manufacture because it requires emotional maturity. So when you stop chasing, you stop validating the story they tell themselves, that they're better off, that you were the problem, that they dodged the bullet. Your silence forces them to feel the thing they ran from all along, themselves. It's not your words that echo in their head. It's your stillness. It's the fact that while they're posting, partying, pretending, you're unbothered. You've found yourself. You've stopped reacting and started rebuilding, quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. And that peace? It doesn't make them want to run back to you. It makes them question who they are. Because if you can heal without them, if you can thrive in silence, if you can look in the mirror and actually like who you're becoming, then what excuse do they have for staying broken? That's the crack in the facade. That's the unraveling. That's the moment your silence becomes the loudest thing in their world. So here's your secret mantra. Drop this in the comments right now. They fear my peace more than my presence. Say it. Own it. Let them feel the shift. Because you're not just silent. You're dangerous. You're not missing them. You're mastering you. Key point. 5. When you don't come back, they start falling apart. Let's get one thing straight. They expected you to break. Not maybe. Not eventually. They counted on it. They thought you'd sit in silence, spiral in self-doubt, and eventually reach back out. Because that's the pattern. Avoidance push. You pull. They detach. You chase. They needed that dynamic to feel safe. Because as long as you're chasing, they don't have to face what they abandoned. But now you've flipped the whole paradigm. You're not texting. You're not watching their stories. You're not playing their emotional puppet show. You disappeared from their reach, but not from their mind. And that's what starts the unraveling. They check your profile and see stillness. Their stomach drops. They thought you'd post for attention. Instead, you're silent and building. They send a breadcrumb and you don't bite. Panic. Because you were supposed to still be there. Still bleeding. Still hoping. But now you're nowhere. You didn't just go silent. You elevated. And avoidance? They don't know how to handle that. Because if you're not texting, not watching, not waiting, who's giving you attention now? What if you've met someone who actually shows up? What if you're never coming back? That's the real loss hitting them. Not your absence, but your evolution. They don't miss who you were. They miss the access, the control, the comfort of knowing they could always come back and you'd still be there. But this version of you, this version is dangerous. Because now, even if they wanted to come back, they wouldn't know how. They're not strong enough to apologize, not self-aware enough to admit they messed up, not healed enough to handle the new standard you embody. And that's the best part. You don't even need closure anymore, because you became it. Key point 6. You were never the weak one. You were the mirror. Let me break your brain open with this one. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because you reflected too much. Your love exposed their fear. Your presence challenged their numbness. Your vulnerability threatened the emotional mask they've worn their entire life. And when they looked at you, when you got too close, too real, too honest, they didn't see a partner. They saw a mirror that showed them everything they were running from, everything they never learned to process, everything they told themselves they'd buried. That's why they pulled away. That's why they shut down. That's why they convinced themselves you were the problem. But it was never about your love. It was about what your love revealed. And that's why your silence is so powerful now. Because in their mind, you're still that mirror. Still showing them who they pretended to be. Still radiating a level of presence and peace they don't know how to hold. And while they tried to reframe the story, paint you as clingy, needy, emotional, the truth is, they're terrified of someone who doesn't need to beg to be chosen. He didn't chase. He didn't fight for me. He actually let me go. No, he didn't chase. No, he didn't cling. No, he didn't explode. He reflected. He paused. He got still. And in that stillness, he didn't shrink. He didn't sulk. He sharpened. So here's the real power play. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to be louder. You just need to keep evolving quietly, because silence makes mirrors sharper. Let them run. Let them post. Let them pretend. You're not their echo anymore. You're their consequence. Final comment challenge. If you felt this last point in your soul, type this in the comments right now. I was the mirror. They couldn't face themselves. Say it and mean it, because you were never weak. You were just clear. And clarity terrifies the unhealed. Eater for him. Key point 7. By the time they regret it, you've outgrown the version of you that wanted them. Here's the brutal part they never see coming. By the time they finally feel it, it's too late. Too late to apologize. Too late to explain. Too late to re-enter the life of someone who rebuilt without them. Because here's the twist. They think the version of you they left will be the same one waiting when they circle back. But silence doesn't just change their perception. It evolves your identity. While they were trying to move on, you were mastering yourself. You started hitting the gym, chasing purpose, cleaning your mental house. You built structure. You built peace. You built a life that doesn't need to be explained, proven, or compared. You stopped craving their attention and started respecting your own energy. And what they don't understand is, the person they left isn't the one they'd get back. And the person you've become would never tolerate who they still are. That's the part that guts them. They didn't just lose you. They lost the last version of you that would have made space for their dysfunction. Now, you don't check their socials. You don't dream of their return. You don't wish for closure, because you are the closure. And when they finally look back, trying to reconnect, trying to see if the door's still cracked open, it's not just closed. It's been rebuilt into a wall they'll never climb, not out of bitterness, not out of revenge, out of growth. Because the man you've become, he doesn't chase ghosts. He doesn't fall for old patterns. He doesn't beg for crumbs at the table he built himself. And they'll feel it. Not through a dramatic moment, not through an angry message, but in that slow, aching realization, he really doesn't want me back. And that hits deeper than any silence ever could. Comment this if you're done waiting. I outgrew who they left behind. Let the world and yourself know you didn't just stay silent. You elevated. And now they don't even know the man they thought they walked away from. The version of you they can't come back to. So now you know, your silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's strength. It's the one thing that pierces through the armor they've spent their whole life building. And if you've held the line this far, if you've resisted the itch to reach out, to beg, to chase, you're already winning. Because you're no longer reacting like the person they left. You're becoming the person they'll never have access to again. You're not just showing discipline. You're showing them something far scarier, that you healed in their absence. And that is the nightmare every avoidant can't shake. Not you texting them back. Not you waiting. Not you missing them. but you outgrow them. That silence you've kept. It's louder than anything you could have said. It's louder than the apology they never gave. Louder than the breadcrumb they dropped. Louder than the maybe we can talk they're still too scared to send. Because silence isn't just absence, it's presence. Your presence. The kind that speaks with power, not pain. With self-respect, not desperation. With certainty, not confusion. So, what now? Now you keep building. You keep rising. You keep doing what they never expected. You move on with dignity, with depth, with direction. And when, not if, they come back, you won't be bitter. You won't be broken. You won't even be tempted. You'll just be beyond them. Because the real flex isn't getting them back. It's becoming the version of you they never deserved in the first place. If this message hit you in the chest, if you felt seen, called out and ready to rise, then do this. Like this video. Subscribe. And hit the bell so you don't miss the next time we go all in on your power. Drop this in the comments right now. I outgrow, I don't chase. Let the world know you're not waiting in silence. You're building in silence. Because the new you doesn't beg. The new you doesn't break. The new you becomes a standard they'll never reach again. Now, breathe, stand tall, and let's make silence your loudest comeback. We're just getting started.